All right, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and get rolling here. So I appreciate everybody taking some time to join us here on a Sunday night for tonight's very special conversation that we're going to have here. So my name is Andy Drake. I'm the senior group recruiting coach here for our baseball guys, and looking forward to our conversation with Coach Sean Pfeiffer. Coach, we're still good, right? Everything good to go there?
Yeah, happy to
All
be here.
right.
Excited to talk with you guys.
Awesome, man. We got the audio going. We got the video going, man. We are ready to roll. So excited for tonight's conversation. So Coach Pfeiffer is going to come in tonight specifically to talk a little bit about, how to update coaches in the spring. What are some good practices for you guys? Kind of talk a little bit about what's happening on his side of things, what's going on the college coaches side of things during the busy spring season. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But please come with any questions, any topics you want to hear a little bit about, man. The chat and the Q&A will be firing, I'm sure. So definitely come with any questions here that you have for a college coach, man. So we're excited to have Coach on. So, Coach, I'll let him give his background here in a little bit, but he is from Grinnell College, which is a Division III program out in Iowa. So for those of you that might be in that area, definitely listen in a little bit as close as well. So, all right, but we're going to record tonight's session. If there's anything that you want to go back over or listen to again, I'll send it out afterwards. And make sure you give us a quick follow on the X and the Instagram. I've got our NCSA baseball handles up there. Give us a follow. We'll share some content there too. So all that being said, let's get rolling. All right. So our agenda tonight, Coach and I are going to have a conversation. We're going to have time for Q&A. Now, feel free to fire away with questions in the chat box throughout. We might not get to everything in real time, but we'll definitely try to get to everything before we wrap up. All right, real quick, guys, want to take 30 seconds and just highlight some of our upcoming workshops and conversations here for February. We've got some baseball recruiting 101s coming up. Some other great conversations. We've got one coming up, player personnel from the Astros. We've got another college coach coming on to talk to parents specifically there in the middle of February. I've got another conversation with someone from the Rays organization that we'll have in March that you'll see on the calendar soon. So we got some great conversations coming up like tonight's. Now, next week, actually a couple weeks here, we're going to talk about D3 ball. So we're going to have a conversation about that. And we got a few other workshops too. So if you guys can't make any of those live, just sign up, get the recordings. We'll send those out to you and you can watch those recordings whenever you get a chance. All right. We're going to do some quick intros. I'm going to do a really quick intro just as the host here tonight. A lot of you guys have been in my workshops, but then I want Coach to give his background as well. So just for any of you that haven't been into my workshops here, Andy Drake, senior group recruiting coach. Been here at NCSA now for 11 years. So I've been working with lots of guys through the process. Played my college ball at Calvin University, Division III in Michigan. Was a high school teacher, coach, AD for about a decade. Coached at 2 Division III programs. Head coach at Cairn University out in Philadelphia. Recruiting coordinator at Kalamazoo College in Michigan. And like I said, been here for over a decade. So hopefully be a good host here tonight. But Coach Sean, if you don't mind, just a quick intro background, just to kind of give a little bit of some insight into kind of your journey to get to Grinnell College.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. A little bit of background about me. I'm born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Grew up about 3 miles down from Wrigley Field. Huge Cubs fan. Obviously played my high school ball at in Chicago at a school called Lane Tech. Went on to play club ball at Northern Illinois University. As soon as I graduated, went back to coach at Lane Tech in Chicago, coached there for about 4 years. And then I was able to get the pitching coach job at Grinnell College, and now I'm going into my second season here with the team. So a little bit of an interesting journey, but love where I'm at right now, and it's been a great time building a program up here at Grinnell.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you on to bring a little bit of some insight for our guys as far as some of these spring updates. All right. So let's start to get into this a little bit, Coach. Now, first thing I want to kind of have you fill the guys in a little bit on is just, you guys are practicing, man. You're like less than 2 weeks from your first first weekend, getting started with games. So, the college season is underway. So, tell the folks in here a little bit about kind of what your schedule is looking like currently, what it's going to look like once the games pick up. Like you're like Sunday through, Saturday. How does it look? How's your time divvied up? Like, what are you doing? Just kind of give them a little bit of a sense of kind of like what your week looks like once the games get rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. January and February isn't always synonymous with baseball, but it definitely is at the college level.
For sure.
That's when we kick things off. That's when practices get going. And every year it seems like we're playing earlier and earlier. Like you said, our first series is over the February 15th weekend. So less than a month away here. Our schedule is busy. But that's what's great about it is there's a lot of baseball going on.
Mm-hmm.
We practice, like you said, probably 6 days a week. When we start throwing games in the mix, um, travel in the mix, we might, you know, plan for an off day or so. But other than that, we're pretty much going,
Mm-hmm.
6 days a week. A typical week for us is a doubleheader on Saturday, one game on Sunday, possibly a midweek game as well.
Mm-hmm.
And having that, guys still have to get their swings in, pitchers still have to stay on a throwing routine. So it is a lot of juggling. But that's what your older guys are for. That's what your coaching staff is for, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of bring you guys along, introduce you to time management, introduce you to, good decision making,
Mm-hmm.
introduce you to prioritizing. So that's actually something that I love, talking to our young guys about, not just on the field, but, how our class is going, how's life,
Mm-hmm.
how's it being away from family. It's all part of, what the season looks like. That's a lot of off the field stuff.
Absolutely. Now, for you as a coach specifically, how does your planning, how does your days kind of work out? Like in the mornings, what are you kind of doing? Afternoons, even like maybe evening, like, what's kind of a typical, like a Monday through Friday kind of day look? If it's maybe like even like a non-game day, what
Mhm.
does your guys' day kind of look like as far as planning the day, planning the practice, et cetera?
Yeah, great question. Grinnell is unique in the fact that most of our classes are from the block of 8 a.m. till 3
Mm-hmm.
p.m., which gives us our athletes a ton of opportunity to focus on their athletics in the later part of their day, which is really nice. And it's also really nice in a coach's perspective that I get a lot of my office work done during the day, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm not have to worry about working around practices, working
Yeah.
around bullpens, working around conditioning sessions and stuff like that. So it's definitely a scheduling, like I said, a lot of the time management,
Mm-hmm.
same for coaches as it is for you guys. Um, but yeah, we'll generally practice for about between 2 and 3 hours a day, each day in
Mm-hmm.
the evening. Like I said, maybe that one day off day, but it's definitely a schedule where we like guys to be committed, and you
Mm-hmm.
know to be successful at this level, the first thing you have to be is committed. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something that I can attest to. But yeah, like I said about the 2 hour practice, and guys are kind of expected to take care of their pre-therapy work,
Mm-hmm.
their wrapping up, their stretching, their band work, their massages, all that kind of stuff that just adds on to the schedule.
Yeah.
So that's kind of something that you start to think about when building out the schedule of the day. Like you think
Mm-hmm.
about like that, yeah, there's time on the field, there's time in the office, but then there's time to get yourselves ready, there's time
Mm-hmm.
to get the coaching staff ready. So there's no shortage of things to fill our day with for
Absolutely. And a lot of things that you're figuring out, like how do we fit certain things in, especially that are maybe there's more time for it in the off season, but when the spring season gets rolling, more of your focus is, yeah, we're trying to, win some ball games this year, right? And so other things, like recruiting, which we'll talk a little bit about more, how that kind of fits into your schedule, maybe goes a little bit to a next, tier down as far as time that's spent. All right. So when you think about, kind of looking over your list of recruits and the guys that kind of you've already maybe begun to talk with, 25, maybe we can kind of talk about your timeline a little bit, 20, but even like 26s that maybe you've begun some conversations with. Like right now, like especially like in season, because it's going to change a little bit. How often, how much are you proactively checking in on guys? Like, where are you fitting that in your kind of like your
Mhm.
schedule as far as like proactive outreach? If a guy is someone that's on your list, what are they kind of expecting for like how often they might be hearing from you during the spring?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're actually all wrapped up with our 25 class
Mm-hmm.
that finished up about a month ago.
Yep. Yep.
We've been into our 26 class for about 2 months now, and we'll check in with those guys once a month.
Sure.
Um, the guys will reach out to us, ask us what we need and stuff like that. But once a month, we really feel like is pretty good at this
Mm-hmm.
point. At this point, we're just kind of trying to get to know the person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really like the first step and the most important step for us. Cause like I tell every recruit that I talk to, you can be the best player on my page. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're not fitting in with what we're doing here and you're not fitting in with the culture of what we want to do, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
as talented as you might be, we have to make sure that you're the right type of guy for us.
Mm-hmm. Are you scheduling any kind of like visits or anything in the spring? Is that usually pretty rare? Or like what do you guys specifically do as far as like, hey, if a family's got time and they're able to fit it in, like maybe before their season gets rolling, or maybe even during the season on like a weekend or something? Are you guys doing much for visits, or is the spring more of kind of a downtime as far as that goes?
It is a little bit more of a downtime
Yeah.
just because, we're flying all over the place
Yeah.
in
Yep.
terms of getting stuff done. We do kind of try to group them together,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
pick maybe a good home series
Sure.
or maybe a weekend where it's not often, but we do have an occasional off weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a good time. Sometimes the school is doing things academically that
Yep.
just makes sense for us to kind of match up with their tour days,
Mm-hmm.
sit in on class days, stuff where events are going on campus. So we try to be as available as possible. And if you're visiting, Grinnell and a lot of these colleges, coaches will do their best to make time
Yeah.
for you. It may be 5-10 minutes, but it could be a good 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
it's
get a call.
it's
You get a call from admissions, like, "Hey, coach, we got somebody here. Like, hey, I'll come down and chat for a little bit." I remember
Mhm.
getting those calls too, and at least give a little bit of some time if you've got it for sure. So
Yeah, absolutely.
awesome. So really though, the idea would be like if you're actively recruiting a player right now, like say in the 26 class, like it's not gonna be a mystery, right? Like you're gonna kind of let them know, you've kind of got this cadence of how you're interacting with them. Like that'll be something that they kind of have like an idea of like what the expectation is for them to you and kind of them hearing from you as well, right? Like so if you're actively going after them, they're gonna kind of know that, right? That's at this point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The
Yeah.
the recruiting world is gotten so mainstream that,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times if I'm interested in a kid, I can tell you right now that I'm interested in you, and,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the beauty of social media.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So again, guys, keep that in mind too. That while sometimes it can feel a little bit like maybe there's some gray area. So hey, I don't know. Usually it's going to be pretty clear, and if it's not clear, we probably either need to ask some questions, or maybe you're not as high on the list as you might think if you're not getting that proactive outreach. Like Coach said, even like that monthly sort of outreach from a coach proactively, then we need to kind of maybe work towards some more personal conversation. All right, so when we're kind of thinking about, you mentioned like, hey, we hear from guys during the spring. We do get updates and we want them, right? But when you're thinking about that, what's the best way for guys to send you updates, even if it's somebody that isn't like being actively recruited yet by you guys, but hey, you're still probably pretty open and hey, we'd love to hear from more 26s and so forth. Like, what's the best way for guys to make that outreach in the spring? What's the best way to kind of catch your attention, among that busy schedule this spring?
Yeah, I find it really hard to tell guys that X or Twitter is not
Right, right.
a really
Yeah.
good way to get a
Mm-hmm.
hold of me, just because it's
Mm-hmm.
very quick, super accessible.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a one-stop shop where I can see, video, contact information.
Mm-hmm.
GPA is always great if you want to throw that one in there.
Mm-hmm.
Recruiting websites like you guys are
Mm-hmm.
really great for us.
Mm-hmm.
Also kind of like a one-stop shop. But also, good old-fashioned email is still something that we definitely look at.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, actually, we went through about 20 guys that had emailed us over the past
Mm-hmm.
couple weeks. So it may not be the quickest way to do it, and it may not feel like it's, substantial on your end, but I promise you, we do see the
Mm-hmm.
emails. We may not be able to respond to each and every one of them, but they go into a folder, and when we have a day like yesterday, we'll knock out about 20-25 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how some guys get in our list as well. So there's
Mm-hmm.
there's no bad way to get in contact with us. The only thing I'll say is, sometimes be patient, and
Yeah.
I'll never be mad about somebody reaching out twice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's great insight because I think a lot of times, families are like, man, we've reached out to these coaches, haven't heard back. And so sometimes it's good to hear and good to understand. They're like, hey, we do read the messages, we get to them, we try to respond as quickly as possible. But like you said, like your response time might be even in the off season, it might be a few days, right? But in
Mhm.
the season especially, it might even be a little bit more time in between. So now on X specifically, do you want? I mean, do you like if guys like tag you in a tweet? Do you like them to like send it to you directly? If a guy follows you, like if it's just a random kid that you get a follow from, how often are you like following back? Just and just maybe for you personally, like kind of how do you sort of handle
Mhm.
some of that interaction on the X?
Yeah, personally, I kind of like it if it's sent to me directly over
Sure.
a
Yep.
tag or something
Hmm.
like that. Just because when I get tagged, sometimes those can get lost.
Yes.
When I'm searching through and there's, a couple or maybe
Hmm.
one from yesterday and now from today and now from
Hmm.
2 days ago. Whereas the messages kind of sit a
Yep.
little bit higher on the list. There's a
Hmm.
notification for me.
Yeah.
So that's definitely where I prefer to receive
Hmm.
messages. Is also a little bit easier for me to communicate back to you that way.
Hmm.
But yeah, if you email this video, it'll get seen. There's like I said, there's really no bad way to reach
Yeah.
out to us. Um, but yeah, X has become a big tool for me personally
Yeah.
recruiting. And I don't really see that changing just because
Hmm.
of, the simplicity of it, how
Yep.
easy it is, how many of you guys are utilizing that
Hmm.
platform. So,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I'm gonna recruit where you guys are at.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yep.
you guys dictate a lot of how I recruit by what
Yep.
you guys use.
And you have a pretty wide recruiting base as well, right? You guys have a pretty good like West Coast, sort of presence. You get a lot of guys from like those kind of places. So, you can't always get out and see guys. Maybe they can't always come to you necessarily because they're just sort of geographic things. So again, that's where like X and that kind of recruiting is very helpful for you guys, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would say probably 60% of our squad is from the
Yeah.
West Coast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unique to us this year, we actually don't have anybody from Iowa on our roster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, 4 kids from Hawaii, 2 kids from
Hmm.
Japan.
Hmm.
We just graduated third baseman from London. So
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
we recruit everywhere and anywhere,
Yeah.
except for
That's awesome.
Iowa, apparently.
Yeah. And I mean, you wouldn't bring in an Iowa guy, right? It just
No,
means that you happen
absolutely
to fill
not.
those
We we
spots.
we
Yeah.
take them. We take them. We love them from home too. So don't
Absolutely.
don't be turned off, Iowa guys. You
Yeah.
welcome here.
Absolutely, man. You got a home there for sure if you're the right fit. Now, real quick on X, I know that it's been a little confusing just because like it used to be, of course, you could send a message if a coach had them open and you weren't, but now you kind of have to follow each other, right? So if a guy wants to be able to message you there, are you sort of choosy on who you follow back? Are you pretty much like if somebody follows you and it looks like they're a recruit, you'll get them that follow so there can be that conversation? Just again, kind of, just kind of how do you sort of handle that particular
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
it?
Fortunately, my messages are open, so you can
Okay.
contact me even
Okay.
if we aren't following.
Got it.
But like you said, the getting in contact with the
Yeah.
individual if we're interested in them, those are more of the guys that I'll follow back
Yeah. Yep.
and kind of get deeper into if we are going to be a good match for them, if they're
Hmm.
going to be a good match for us.
Yeah.
So I definitely read all the messages and get all the
Hmm.
messages. And then I may dig a little deeper with
Yeah.
following guys back and finding out a bit more about them that way.
Definitely. Definitely. Good stuff. Hey, if there's any questions, guys, feel free. Don't be shy. Go ahead and fire away in the chat box. If we see something pop in, we can certainly get to that. All right. Now, during the spring, coach, what are some updates that are helpful for you? What's the kind of things that sort of stand out? What are you looking for? Just, give some insight into like what are good things for guys to send you for any kind of update, during the
Mhm.
spring.
Yeah. I'm a big video over stats guy.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what I'm looking for is, film rather than you telling me you're hitting 400,
Hmm. Hmm.
in your high school league one. I'm from Chicago high school area. To be honest, I'm not really in the know in a lot of the other high school divisions,
Hmm.
especially
Hmm.
outside of the Midwest.
Hmm.
So I'm really going off what I see physically, eye test kind of things. Metrics tell a story in a
Hmm.
certain part, but at the end of the day, I'm really looking at you and what we see is your end game, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm looking for
Hmm.
potential. I'm looking for guys that I think can grow in my program.
Yeah.
So metrics don't speak to me as much as, especially on the pitching side. If you move well, that's something
Hmm.
that's going to really catch my attention more than any metric will. Hitting wise, if your swing is smooth, if you're busting out of the box, if you're somebody that's, I can see that is looking to take bases, um, you know, aggressive baseball is always going to catch my eye. And
Hmm.
those are things that I look for in non-metric areas, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Absolutely. Now, when you think of like video, let's kind of talk about that for a minute because sometimes there's Well, what kind of video do you want to see? Like, skills footage is always helpful, of course, but during the spring, these guys are getting their own highlights. Do you want to? I mean, how often do you want to see that kind of stuff? Is like, hey, just send us like a season recap. If the guy's got some good highlights throughout the season, hey, keep them coming. Like, what's sort of enough versus not enough versus, hey, maybe it's a little too much. Kind of what's kind of a good balance there for them sending you highlights during the spring.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because some guys definitely do go a little overboard with it.
Yeah.
I don't need to see a ton on you
Mm-hmm.
to know that you're a good ball player, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can see limited video, a couple updates here and there, especially if we're talking about something specific that you're working on, something specific that you want me to see. Those are more things that I'll look for specifically. But when we're recruiting you, you've already caught my attention as a ball player. So now I want to see how you progress. I want to see, how you are as a person. I want to see what kind of a team guy you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really three of the biggest things that I'm looking to find out, once we establish that you're a good ball player.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking, to see a weekly kind of update necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger events. Hey, coach, had a good month, had a good tournament, just beat a good team. Like those are all great for me.
Sure.
Like I love to hear about that. I hit 450 at this tournament over the weekend is a little less important to me. But yeah, it's hard for me to not, watch video. That's, part of the reason I got into the job, and part of the reason that I
Definitely.
love recruiting is love to watch guys work on their game. That's the biggest thing for me is if I can see you not only putting in work, but progressing as well, that's a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on for sure.
So definitely not discouraging the footage, but also it's like, hey, make sure it's something that is like going to be really helpful. Like if you have like a couple of bloop singles from a Wednesday game, like, okay, cool, good results for you. Maybe not the most helpful thing to send, but if you hit 3 bombs in a game, you probably don't have to wait a week to send it either, right? Like, hey, let him know,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So yeah, kind of just be, thinking about that as well. All right, we had a couple questions come in, Coach. I want to kind of get to those. So one question came in around the timeline. I think I'll kind of hit this one, and Coach, you can maybe speak to a little bit as well. As far as like 25s, like are most coaches kind of finished up? You mentioned you guys are kind of wrapping up with 25s. A lot of 4-year schools are going to be starting to wrap up now. Grinnell and Coach, you can speak to this a little bit. You guys are a little bit more higher academic, a little more selective academically, so guys are probably applying a little bit sooner there, right? So again, at the higher academic schools like yourselves, you might wrap up sooner than maybe another run-of-the-mill type of D3 program, which might not be quite as selective academically. A lot of JUCOs, though, are still very active. A lot of NAIs are going to be very active. So absolutely, there's a ton of opportunity still for 25s. Not every school is going to be wide open. You might, some schools might just need a catcher. They just might need a pitcher. So it's all going to come down to talking to the coach as well. But there's going to be spots out there. So, just kind of your own experience in it. Of course, again, as you said, like, you guys are maybe pretty close or pretty much wrapped up. But, timeline wise, just in general, any words of like encouragement for guys as far as like just kind of knowing other programs that you go up against?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, every school is different.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yep.
works with different timelines.
Yep.
We at Grinnell are a very high academic
Mm-hmm.
institution. So how 100% this year, but how 90% of our guys get into Grinnell is through the early decision
Yep.
process.
Yep.
And that wraps up January 15th is the last day of that. The
Mm-hmm.
first day is December 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So our guys are really getting in between that
Yep.
period right there.
Yep.
Your chances of getting into Grinnell go from a 96% chance to an 8% chance from early decision to regular decision.
Yeah.
So it's not that guys, we won't take guys at that point. It's just extremely, extremely hard to get into Grinnell
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, which just forces your timeline to be a little bit sooner, right? So again, not this isn't like a slight to another school, but like a University of Dubuque, which may not be as challenging to get into. For example, their regular decision may go a little bit longer, whatever it may be, a little bit more chance to get in. So similar schools can have completely different timelines too. But the quick answer to that is there are absolutely still. Check out our roster openings page. There are tons of programs we are hearing from still that are asking about 25. So keep an eye on that for sure. All right, Coach. Here's another good one. So you're obviously the assistant coach, pitching coach, recruiting coordinator. So let's just, who's the best coach typically, obviously for your program to reach out to, but in most programs, like how would you handle that? Let's say Coach Hollabaugh gets an email, but they don't send you a message. Is
Mhm.
he replying? What's he doing with that? Like, what's the in your scenario? Like, what's the head coach doing? Is he forwarding it to you, or what's kind of going on?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, Coach Halaba is
Yeah,
forwarding that directly to me
sure.
across the hall,
Yeah,
which is great. I
yep,
love being in charge of the recruiting. I love it's a really great part of my job that I enjoy.
yeah.
So at this point, he's confident I know what I'm doing enough to kind of let me run with it. So
And so
good.
so really, if guys are in, if they have any kind of question about who to reach out to on staff, is it probably a good practice? Just go ahead and maybe just send it to, if you aren't sure, send it to everybody, and then at least the right guy's getting it. Is that an okay practice, you think?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great thing to do.
yeah,
Don't feel like that's a red flag or anything. A
yeah,
lot of the times, he'll shout from across the office, "Did you get one? That one?
yeah,
Yeah, I
yep,
got it. I got it."
yeah,
So
yep.
yeah, it's definitely send it to anybody. I'll find it. It'll get to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of programs, they might go a little bit different. Sometimes a lot of programs, the head coach is a lot more involved. Sometimes the head coaches take more charge in the recruiting. So it's okay to message them. Some programs like, Grinnell here, it's going to be probably less likely the head coach will be the one getting back to you. It's going to be, the assistant coach Pfeiffer getting back to you. So I think if there is a recruiting coordinator specifically listed, that's probably typically the guy to go to first, right? Because that's the job title of the guy who's probably handling a lot of the recruiting. If you're a pitcher, though, and there's a separate pitching coach listed, hey man, hit that guy up. He probably is the one that wants to see the video. So it's better to kind of cover all the bases, and you don't have to guess who the right person is. Just hit up, most of the coaches there. You're probably good to go. All right, awesome. Another good question here, Coach. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but just kind of clarify a little bit more for you. Like, your, like skills videos, how much do you maybe prefer that or game footage, or like, what's sort of your balance and how it's best to sort of like evaluate how good that guy may be? Is it more
Mhm.
skills, more games? You kind of want to see a little bit of both. What's kind of your sort of best balance with those?
Yeah, I would love to see a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And I break them down a little bit differently. Like obviously you can look at a mechanical and a movement standpoint in dry reps and bullpen sessions and stuff like that. But I love the game footage because that shows, a side of competitiveness that,
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily come through in bullpens or T work or stuff like that. I'll give
Yeah.
you guys a really great example. Um, a really good middle infielder, in the conversation for, the top guy we're going to go after in terms of middle infielders, sent us a video, and in a couple parts of the video, he is avoiding tags through these pretty impressive slides.
Hmm.
And that's very cool to watch. Like that's an awesome thing to send a coach.
Yeah.
That shows me you are thinking about the game a little bit differently and a little bit different level. You're incredibly competitive, you're athletic, you're aggressive. Like those are all things that I really love to see. So stuff like that can really stick out. Like at the end of the day, we love baseball, we're baseball
Hmm.
fans. We
Yeah.
get excited about good baseball. So,
Yeah.
any chance you can kind of send us that kind of stuff, that's awesome.
Sometimes the game footage can demonstrate that IQ, right? That baseball
Yeah,
IQ, that
absolutely.
savviness on the field that doesn't come through in just a round of BP or fielding some ground balls. I think that's awesome. All right. How about all right, so I'm going to send an email to a coach here. Coach, you get a lot of emails, not just recruit emails, but probably your inbox just gets
Mhm.
filled up with like college stuff and whatever. All that, it's a lot of emails coming in, I'm sure. What's a good subject line? We kind of give our guys advice around subject lines, but specifically for you, like how does the subject line help it stand out? Do you ever miss an email because like a subject line is like short or not good? Like how does the subject
Mhm.
line play into it, and what's the kind of information that might catch your eye if you're like scanning your inbox for that Monday morning when you haven't been in for a few days?
Yeah, definitely. I actually had a really interesting one come across. I think it was last week where
Yeah.
it was the kid's name and then like in parentheses like three stats. I think it was his exit velocity, his
Mm-hmm.
60 time, and his pull down time.
Mm-hmm.
Which whatever stats you want to send me is great, but I thought that was kind of nice to just
Yeah.
highlight it right there for me. Knew the
Mm-hmm.
kid's name, knew what he wanted me to, highlight about his email. And then he
Mm-hmm.
goes on and has a nice email. But everything I really needed was kind of right there in the
Yeah.
subject line, which made it really easy on me.
Yeah.
Links in the email are always really helpful. I
Mm-hmm.
will say, just make sure your link works.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do get links to
Yeah.
nowhere, which is
Yeah.
a little tough to evaluate you. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can put a link in there, like we have all the, NCSA, all the apps, all
Yeah.
the recruiting websites. Like, send us, what
Yeah.
you have. We'll be able to access it. We'll be able to see it. That's a great way to
Yeah.
keep us updated.
Yeah. And so like subject line for you guys too, like as a, being a more selective academic school, guy has like a 34 ACT and that's in the subject line,
Yes.
that's probably jumping out, right? That kind of information is the kind of stuff that jumps out to you.
Yes, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
That is definitely something, because like I said, like, you can be the best ball player on
Hmm.
a list, but
Yeah.
that's a box you have to check for us.
Yeah.
It's got to be a high academic kid.
And that can also be a little bit of a disappointment for you too, right? Like, oh man, this guy's throwing like 88 to 90 and he's got all this and 28 18 that ain't gonna work for us, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like get that to them in the subject line, like make sure that they know what's gonna be relevant for them too. So yeah,
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
great stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So, Coach, are there other platforms that you are kind of aware of? Are coaches maybe getting more active on like Instagram or anything like that? Or do you kind of feel like X is sort of like the landing spot for what really is happening on social media? Or are there any others that are starting to pop off a little bit, or that even that you might check? Or what do you think there?
So we're on all of them. We're
Yeah.
on Facebook. We're on Instagram.
Yeah.
I would still say X is pretty, by a wide margin, the one we utilize the most. I think we use Instagram a lot for marketing,
Yeah.
in terms of getting information out there,
Yeah.
letting you guys know updates about the program. It's kind of a flashier app, pictures, stuff like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Whereas, we're much more informational on X. I feel like that's
Yeah.
where we're
Yeah.
really kind of putting out our information a little bit more, rather
Yeah.
than, our branding and stuff like that, which is on Instagram.
Yeah, and I think the platform for X is maybe a little bit more set up kind of for the back and forth. Instagram is it's more about like the photos and things like that, right?
Mhm.
Like this, so there's kind of like limitations on how the posts work and everything else. So I think unless X completely changes how it runs things or changes its platform, it's probably gonna, I think, continue to be, just my opinion, will probably continue to be kind of the most common place for a lot of the social media interaction. Facebook is kind of like, not all the kids are on Facebook anymore, right? So that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
challenge with Facebook, right?
Less and less each year. I
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
like, are we using Facebook?
yeah. I'm not recruiting middle age, moms and grandmas and whatever anymore. Right? That's who's on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
I say that facetiously. I know that there's good stuff going on there, but all right. So here's somebody said, all right, maybe it's a dumb question, but if a coach opens an email. Because just so you know, coach, and maybe you know this already, but on our platform, and other email platforms too, right? Like if an email gets opened up, like there's like a little read receipt, right? Email open. So if a coach opens an email, or if we just send an email and there's like no reply, as a family or as a recruit, should we like assume like it's just they must not be interested? Like what goes into, like you said, hey, I do check emails. I try to get back to them. Like if somebody doesn't get a reply, what's that mean for you? And kind of just
Mhm.
some insight, and maybe just in general, other coaches, maybe how they kind of operate as well. But what does that generally mean if there's no reply back?
Yeah. So we encourage everybody to reach out.
Hmm.
Like I said, we do see the emails and they do go somewhere.
Yeah.
If it's, what folder they may go in is up to, the individual.
Hmm.
Um, but I think, the most important thing is that we we try to be upfront with guys. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we if you're not our guy, and we've see like, I've noticed you've reached out 2, maybe 3 times,
Yeah.
I'll let you know, like, "Hey, we really appreciate you interested in our program. We don't think you'd be a good fit for A, B, or C."
Yeah.
And it's nothing personal. Like I said, like, I have a lot of stipulations that I have to go through
Yeah.
before I can check a guy off my list.
Yeah.
And different schools have different things, but we really do try to do a good job of, not
Yeah.
stringing kids along, being very upfront and honest with guys.
Yeah.
Um, and we think that's, the best way to go about it for a
Yeah.
lot of different reasons, but, it's just good for you. Like, don't be afraid of rejection, because there's going to be a lot of rejection. Baseball is a game of failure. Getting recruited is a game of failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities out there, and you'll find your opportunity.
I like that you said like, hey, 2 or 3 messages. Like at that point, you try to, like, if maybe you notice like, ooh, crap, I haven't really replied back to this guy.
Mhm,
Try to get him something back. Give him, maybe just say, hey, we might be looking other places. But
mhm.
for in general, would you say like, hey, if a guy to just a program in general reaches out 3 or 4 times or so, no reply back, that's probably an indication of like, hey, there's probably some other guys higher on the list, or maybe they're done and they just aren't as responsive as you are to get back and give them a heads up. Like, would you say that that's typical at most college programs? About 3 or 4 times, probably like,
Yeah.
it's probably a sign of something.
Yeah, I think that's a good kind of
Yeah,
plan to have there. Like you said, if we're interested in you guys,
yeah,
we are going to make sure you guys know
yeah,
about that
yeah,
interest.
yeah,
Especially top end guys. Like I said, we're going to reach out once a month. But yeah, if you're reaching out consistently and not hearing what you'd like back, it may be time to kind of look at other
yeah,
options, and maybe even, it might not be that the school type is the wrong, type. It may just be you need to cast a wider net.
yeah, yeah,
Because, like I said, different schools have different needs, right? Like I may not be recruiting this position very heavily this year,
but
but
somebody is.
other school is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good stuff. All right. So, Coach, you mentioned in the emails, like, hey, some of the stuff you like, metrics sounds like that's a good thing to include if you have it. Links to different recruit, profiles or things like that with videos and information if you have them. Try to get that in there. Anything else that you can think of that, like, in like not so much the subject now, but like the body of the email, anything else that kind of stands out that is like, all right, that kind of catches my attention or might make me want to potentially reply back to that guy. Anything else that kind of comes to mind that kind of stands out in those emails?
Yeah, I think a little bit of like the history of your baseball. And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is kind of like, why do you play?
Yeah.
What is the reason that you're looking to play baseball in college?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you looking for us? Why do you
Yeah.
want to play for us?
Yeah.
So that really speaks to me. If I get an email that, outlines, I love baseball, I'm very passionate about it, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely want to play at the next level, I think your school is a great fit for A, B, and C, that's going to be an email that I'm definitely taking notice of.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice. Now, so let's say now there's phone numbers that can, obviously people have phone numbers still nowadays, right? And we can text, we can call, we can do those kind of things too. If you've got a guy's number, right? Like let's say you're a little further into the communication with a guy, or like, hey, just for whatever reason, you guys have exchanged phone numbers now. Are you probably still are you communicating more like right there, more personally, like through text or by the phone? Are you still kind of just like going to like the X platform, or whatever? Like if you've gotten to the point where it's like phone numbers are now exchanged, are you kind of like communicating there mostly at that point?
Yeah, as soon as you
Okay.
have my number and we're in
Yeah.
contact about
Yeah.
recruiting, if you need anything from me, you just let me know.
Yeah.
Text,
Yeah.
call. At that point, I'm trying to get to know you as
Yeah.
best as I can. So whatever I
Yeah.
can do on my end to help you know us as best as you can, that's my job. And
Yeah.
that's really what I love about recruiting is I get to create relationships with a ton of different guys that are doing a ton of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys have different interests, and just learning about a lot of those are really cool. A lot of our recruits are in basketball season right now, so they're
Yeah. Yeah.
constantly telling me about how they're doing in basketball, and I
Yeah.
love to
Yeah.
hear it. So
Yeah. No doubt.
it's definitely I was a good fit to be a recruiting coordinator because that work is all good with me.
That's great, man. Now, a great question here, and this may not be as much of a factor for you, but maybe you can speak to a little bit of just sort of how you're seeing this play out. Recruiting high school guys versus going after transfer portal guys. Now, you as a D3, high academic D3, you may not be like dipping in there as much, but just kind of talk about like how you guys are using this. How is transfers maybe in or out into your program or out of your program affecting you, if at all? And just kind of what are you seeing just sort of overall in the college baseball landscape, and how we're moving to more of a, hey, transfer portal is like definitely an avenue for coaches to pick guys up.
Yeah. So we actually don't utilize the portal very much at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Being such a high academic school, when you come to
Mm-hmm.
Grinnell, you're not only coming to play ball, but you're coming for that education as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So not only that, but that's something that we stress in the recruiting process is we want you to come be a part of our family for 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not looking for guys that are, looking for a stepping stone. We're not looking
Mm-hmm.
for guys that are, not sure about where they want to be.
Yeah.
So those are two things that kind of help with that. But other than that, I think it's really just, making sure that the fit is the right
Yeah.
fit on both ends. And I think
Yeah.
that's, the number one thing that we look for, honestly.
Yeah. So for you guys, it's certainly not something that's playing as much into your world, but you're probably, there may be a guy once in a while, maybe that really emerges and it's like, hey, coach, I'm going to take
Mhm.
my shot and I'm going to go transfer to University of Iowa or something or whatever because I'm doing some things and you're not necessarily grooming them for that. But if guys make individual decisions, certainly that can still potentially come into your world a little bit
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, we have had that in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have actually had some guys that have transferred in because their brothers have gotten recruited to us.
Oh,
So
nice. Yeah. Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of been a nice 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah.
We really don't lose anybody to the
Okay.
portal.
Okay.
If you're here with us, we're seeing you off to graduation,
Hmm. Hmm.
9.9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
But that's honestly a part of our team that I really love is that
Yeah.
I'm counting on most of my guys being here for 4 years and having great aspirations in the classroom as well.
I think it's great for guys to hear that because I do think that there are a lot of concerns of like, well, geez, everybody's using the transfer portal. So it's like, is there ever really going to be a good fit? I think it's good for guys to hear that, yeah, there are a lot of schools that are utilizing it and that it is kind of going that way. But there's also a lot of colleges that, hey, we are actually really trying to bring in guys that want to be here for 4 years and kind of have that expectation. So that you can find opportunities, of course, where you're maybe not going to go in and be at the risk every year of your 4 years there of somebody new coming in because they're trying to replace everybody with the transfer portal. There are going to be places that do not do that, even though it might seem like every college, may be doing that nowadays. Here's a really good question, Coach. How much do you like the versatility, guys? Like, again, maybe if we're thinking about like what stands out in a message or an update from a recruit, guys that can play more than one position or guys that can pitch and play in the field. Like how does that stand out? How do you sort of like value that in your recruiting versus guys that are maybe a little bit more sort of like static at one position?
Yeah, I love multi-position
Mm-hmm.
guys. I love multi-sport guys. I think it just trains your body to work in different ways, teaches you to compete in different ways. I am always an advocate of guys continuing to be a two-way for as
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
as they possibly can be a two-way.
Mm-hmm.
I have pitchers on my staff that play the field. I have a pitcher on my staff that actually catches for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of welcome it. I think, at the end of the day, I'm looking for you to be the best athlete you can be. So if you can, do that and maneuver your time and like I said, manage your time between being both, that's really the biggest obstacle I see guys running into is it's not that they're not talented enough to be both, it's just they
Yeah.
have to put the work in to be consistent enough to be good at
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And that's what we tell our guys too is like you can come in all fall and we want you to work two-way. When it comes to the season, we might tell you, hey, for this season you're going to be a pitcher, and when we get to the fall, we're going to work you again as a two-way, and we're going to start that back up. Or,
Mm-hmm.
it may be vice versa, where you're not really ready to help us on the mound yet. So you're going to be a middle infielder for this season,
Yep.
and we'll get back to work on the mound once we hit the fall.
Because once the season starts, man, it's about that season, right? It is about like this game today is the most important game that we have, right? And we've got to put our roster together to win this game. Like obviously, a lot of the season is about development and giving guys that opportunity, but like you guys are paid to win games, right? Like you're putting food on the table to win games at
Mhm.
Grinnell, right? So it's like we got to figure out this season and we got to make sure we're building our roster as best as we can. Awesome. Now, someone, if you can clarify, someone threw in the question about like, did we say Matrix? Where maybe we were talking about X, like Twitter X. So just if you want to kind of clarify in there what you maybe heard, I want to make sure we can answer that question there too.
Yeah, metrics.
The
So
metrics, that might have
metrics,
been
yeah,
it too. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
metric. Yeah. Just kind of trying to interpret what we might have said there. So metrics would be like your velocities, your 60 times, your pop times, those kind of numbers. Yeah. So I apologize in case that's what it was. Yeah. So metrics. That's what we were trying to say. If I didn't say it
Yeah,
very clearly.
basically the numbers attached to
Yeah.
the baseball.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. So, a question came in about GPAs. Now, of course, this is hugely different from one college to the next, right? But just example for you guys at Grinnell, like, what would, kind of stand out is like, all right, that GPA can work. Just if we're on paper looking at it, we can at least take a next level look at this guy versus it doesn't matter how good the guy is, it's not going to work. Like, what's kind of your sort of range of GPAs that you can consider there?
Yeah, and this is a great question. For Grinnell College, we really can only start to look at you if you're in that 3.5 and above range.
Mhm.
We are test optional, but if you have a 29 ACT or a 1300 SAT, those are going to help you.
Yeah.
Um, if not, we just tell you to not report them and we'll use your GPA. But those are kind of the numbers that we have to work with here at
Yeah.
Grinnell.
Yeah.
And like you said, every school is different, and there's a school for pretty much every
Yeah.
range that you have, but you have to maybe do some research and find out which school that is for you.
Absolutely. If you graduate high school or even have a GED, you can play college baseball, right? Maybe if you're that far end of it, it's got started at JUCO or something. But as long as you get some sort of high school equivalency, diploma sort of thing, you can play college baseball. But the better your grades are, as coach is really kind of referring to, the more opportunities that you'll have, the bigger your list can be of the schools you consider, of course. All right, great stuff. I think we got all the questions that are in the chat box so far. So let me just kind of hit a few slides here. I think we're almost wrapped up. Yeah, so just real quick, guys, while I got Coach here, I want to take 30 seconds just to remind everybody, we have I talked about them earlier, we have our roster openings coming in. Check those. When we hear from coaches, we post them for you. You can search for them. If you guys want to get some updated matches, numbers, get those videos up to us, get your numbers up so we can reevaluate, update your matches, go through an evaluation session with our recruiting coach team, and then we'll reach out to coaches. Coach Pfeiffer probably gets stuff from us occasionally, like, hey, we got a guy that's a good fit, coach. Here's some guys. Or if Coach Pfeiffer comes to us and says, hey, man, we're looking for some pitchers, I'll send him a list and hey, here's some guys that might be a good fit to check out. So you guys may be included in some of that outreach. So just know that there is some proactive outreach coming from us too to the coaches. And so again, that's some things that we're doing on our side to hopefully give you guys a little bit of some guidance, and of course, in a lot of other things too. So all right, real quick, maybe screenshot this page. Got our contact info up there. Before anybody jumps out, though, let me throw in the chat box here. We'd love to get some feedback, a link to a survey. All right. So if you guys could take 30 seconds before you leave, click on that survey link. Always appreciate some feedback. I hope tonight's discussion has been helpful. Coach Pfeiffer has been awesome. So we'd love to hear that. Let us know how our conversation was tonight or any other feedback you have. But if you guys could fill that out before you go. But that's all I have as far as any sort of content. So Coach, I want to kind of throw it over to you one more time before anybody kind of gets out of here. Any sort of final thoughts, any other just sort of like things that are important for these guys maybe to understand just from your perspective as a current college coach, kind of heading into the spring season this year about, what's going to be happening like with recruiting here for you guys?
Yeah. My biggest sentiment to you guys is just keep with it. Keep chipping away. You guys will find your right fit. Don't be afraid to, search out as many schools as you possibly can, cast a wide net. Coaches are starting to ramp up month by month. It's going to be heavier and heavier. So, don't be afraid to reach out to 50 schools, 100 schools and narrow it down as you go. You'd be surprised where your best fit is. I'll say that. Don't close any doors, keep them all open, and, just keep in mind you're looking for the right fit for you, and everything else will work out for you guys. Good luck to you guys this season.
Absolutely. That's awesome, Coach. And a lot of the schools you look at, maybe the school you end up at is one you've never even heard of, right? You probably have some guys on your roster, that probably never heard of Grinnell College when they were a sophomore in high school, but ended up there, right? So
absolutely. You asked my Hawaii boys if they knew where Grinnell was on the map.
Yeah. They were like, "Where's Iowa, man?
Yeah.
Where's that at?" All right, awesome. And Coach, one other thing I just wanted to you had mentioned to me when we were chatting before the session too, as we were kind of planning it, the recruiting process, patience, right? Like the process can take a while. There's ups and downs. It can be a roller coaster. Don't sort of expect that everything's just going to happen. Like I sent an introduction email and I got an offer, from that email, right? There's going to be a relationship, time that gets developed too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the key things that I like to tell guys. Like I said, we just wrapped up our 25s last month. I started talking to those guys in January of last year.
Yeah.
So I've known some of those guys now for over a year now.
Yeah.
And that was awesome getting to know them. And that's what sometimes it takes to make sure that, this is the right fit on both ends. And, our guys grow to really love our recruiting process because they feel like they can ask us the questions they really want to. They can, dig deeper into kind of, some of the things that you don't necessarily get highlighted about different programs. So I'm all about building relationships, and sometimes that takes time.
Yep, absolutely. Great stuff. All right, coach, if you're cool with it, I want to give it like 30 more seconds to see if any other questions pop in. But if you guys, I see a lot of thank yous coming in the chat box, guys. We appreciate that, of course. If there's any other questions, I want to give it like 30 You got 30 seconds to type it in there. Otherwise, we're all gonna get back to the rest for our Sunday night. But any other final questions here for Coach Pfeiffer while we got him here? Anything else you guys can think of? If you guys are good, man, feel free to jump out, fill out that survey link. I put it in like 5 times. I'm gonna throw it in one more time. Click on that survey on the way out, man. Appreciate any feedback you guys can give. Any other questions though before we get out of here? All right, so coach, here real quick, if a guy like doesn't have access to a radar gun, right? Like, what are some good ways maybe for them to get metrics for you, whether it's like a third party or like what's good ways for them to get metrics if they don't like personally own like a radar gun? How can they show those to you?
Yeah, it can be a little tough getting
Yeah,
actual metrics without the technology, but like I
yeah,
said, video of just how you're moving and how
hmm
you're playing, we'll be able to identify things that way as
yeah.
well. We can take it from there.
Absolutely. And like PBR, the perfect game stuff, like all that. If you end up going to those kind of places, you can just share those numbers, right? You don't have to
Mhm.
get it yourself. Third parties can definitely get that kind of information for them too. All right, this is an interesting one. Maybe not in your world so much, Coach, but like hey, all right, that Vanderbilt quarterback, he wanted to get his year back for JUCO, right? And they ended up granting him an extra year. So as far as like that ruling, that's all that was. That was a specific case for him. It may sort of be a precedent for other guys that maybe weren't, but does not mean that anything has been decided in the future yet that, hey, JUCO doesn't count. Now, could it go that way? Sure, it could. We're not saying that is not going to, but right now nothing has been decided other than, what is it? Pavia, I think was his last name, for the Vanderbilt quarterback. He was granted an additional year from his JUCO times at a JUCO, but it doesn't mean anything has been, and that's just for like the guys that are currently in school too. So if you're not in college yet, that doesn't affect you yet. We'll update you guys if anything changes there, of course. So keep us updated on any of those changes. You guys probably don't do much with the JUCOs, right, Coach?
No, we don't actually.
Hard to
Thankfully,
recruit those guys there.
that's one thing off my
Yeah.
list. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I coached at Kalamazoo College, which is pretty high academic like Grinnell. We actually got a couple of JUCO guys in. We had to really, really like beg for admissions to give them a
Yeah.
shot. And they were pretty good fits for the school. But yeah, sometimes it's hard at those schools for the admissions to give us a shot for those guys, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Good stuff. All right. So I think we're going to wrap it up there, guys. Appreciate everybody joining tonight. Let us know if there's anything you need. And someone mentioned the recording. I will send out an email with the recording here once it's done here in a few minutes before I wrap up my night. So, Coach, thanks again for the time, man. This was awesome. And we'll definitely try to get you on here, get some time down the road. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. Appreciate
Awesome.
you.
All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll see y'all soon. Y'all take care.